How's it going, guys? It's Kyle, the How To Guy 123 here, and in today's tutorial I'm going to show you how to install Windows XP in VirtualBox. I made this tutorial a few years ago, and to this day I still get quite a few questions about it, and I just wanted to make an updated video to go over a few things I missed in the original tutorial, and to explain a few of the minor changes that were made in VirtualBox since then as well. So the first thing we're going to need to do is download and install VirtualBox if you haven't done so already. So I'll leave a link to download it in the description below. Just come down here to where it says VirtualBox 6.1.32 platform packages, or whichever is the current version of VirtualBox if you're watching this video in the future. And then just click on Windows Host to download VirtualBox for Windows, OS X to download VirtualBox for Mac, and you can also download VirtualBox for Linux as well. So I'm not going to go into how to install VirtualBox in this tutorial. It's pretty straightforward. You just install it like any other program on Windows. And once you have VirtualBox installed, we're now going to need to download our Windows XP install image. And once again, I will provide a link to download this in the description below. The best Windows XP ISO image I could find online is from archive.org. And if you haven't heard of archive.org before, it's a pretty popular website which contains an archive of a lot of old software, web pages, movies, and stuff of that nature. So once you're on this page, come down here to where it says download options, and we have two download options. We can just download the ISO image from archive.org by clicking here. And once you click on the ISO image, it's going to ask you where you want to save it on your computer. Put it anywhere you would like. I've already went ahead and downloaded it, so I'm just going to click cancel. One thing to keep in mind is that the servers for archive.org are not the greatest, and the download will probably take a very long time. So I have pretty good internet, and the download took about half an hour for me. So that's just something to keep in mind. That's why it might not be a bad idea to download the ISO image with a torrent, as it'll probably be quite a bit faster. So once you've went ahead and downloaded the Windows XP ISO, we can minimize out of our browser. We can now go ahead and open up VirtualBox. And one more thing we should check before creating our virtual machine is we need to make sure that we have virtualization enabled in our computer's BIOS. Otherwise, if we were to launch our virtual machine, it would just crash instantly. So to check this, we're going to need to open up Task Manager. On Windows 10, you can just right click on the taskbar and then click on Task Manager to open it. Now come over here to the Performance tab, then click on CPU. And here we can see a bunch of information about our CPU. Just come down here to where it says Virtualization, and if it's enabled, we're good to go and we can create our virtual machine. Otherwise, if it says Disabled, you're going to need to restart your computer and head into your BIOS and enable the virtualization setting. I actually have a video of this already, so if you want a tutorial on how to enable virtualization, I'll leave a link for it in the description below. Just go ahead and check out that tutorial, and once you've enabled virtualization, come back to this tutorial and continue with creating your Windows XP virtual machine. So now we can go ahead and close out of Task Manager, and now in VirtualBox we can click on New to create a new virtual machine. Now under Name, you can call your virtual machine whatever you want. I'll just call mine XP Tutorial. Under Machine folder, this is where on your computer your virtual machine files are going to be stored. It's a good idea to save your virtual machines where you have a lot of space, as they can be quite large. I usually just leave them in the default folder though. Under Type, choose Microsoft Windows, and under Version, make sure this is set to Windows XP 32-bit. Once you've done that, click on Next. Under memory size, I believe the minimum amount of memory that Windows XP requires is 128 megabytes, but you're probably going to want to allocate a little bit more than that. I would say you want to allocate between 512 megabytes and about a gig of RAM to your virtual machine. So I'm going to allocate 1 gigabyte, so I'm going to enter 1024 megabytes, and that will give our Windows XP virtual machine 1 gigabyte of RAM. Once you've done that, click on Next. Under Hard Disk, choose Create a Virtual Hard Disk Now, and click on Create. Under Hard Disk File Type, choose VDI or VirtualBox Disk Image, then click on Next. Choose Dynamically Allocated, then click Next again. And finally, now we can choose the size of our virtual hard disk. So this is how much space we're going to be giving Windows XP to store files and programs, along with our operating system. So by default, it's going to give us 10 gigabytes for our virtual machine, but you can increase this as much as you want. But for this tutorial, I'll just leave this at 10 gigabytes. Now click on Create, and we've successfully created our virtual machine. We now go ahead and click on Start to run it. Now VirtualBox is going to launch our virtual machine, and it's asking for a startup disk. So click on this folder icon here, then click on add, and we're going to want to look for our Windows XP ISO that we downloaded earlier. So mine's on my desktop, so I'm going to go ahead and click on it, then choose open. And now in the list here, click on the Windows XP ISO to highlight it, then click on choose. Then click on start, and our virtual machine is going to boot to the Windows XP installer. So now we're in the Windows XP setup. It says welcome to setup. Go ahead and press enter to continue. Then press F8 on your keyboard to accept the license agreement. Here we're going to get a list of the hard disks that we can install Windows XP on. In this case, we only have one, which is our virtual hard disk. Go ahead and press enter to choose the hard disk we want to install Windows XP on, which in this case is just our single virtual hard disk. It's now going to ask us to format our virtual hard disk. Just use the arrow keys on your keyboard and come up here to the top and choose format the partition using the NTFS file system quick. Then press enter. The setup is now going to format our virtual hard disk. This might take a few seconds. It's then going to do a disk check. And then it's going to copy over some setup files to our virtual hard disk. And once this is done, the setup is actually going to restart our virtual machine. Our virtual machine has been restarted. Now it's going to ask us to press any key to boot from a CD. Make sure to not press any key on your keyboard and just let this screen pass. Otherwise, we'll be taken to a boot loop. Your virtual machine is now going to boot back into the Windows XP setup. And it's pretty much just going to install Windows XP on its own. But during this process, the setup is going to give us a few pop-ups we're going to need to go through to configure our operating system. So Windows XP has just given us a pop-up and it's asking us to configure our regional and language options. So you can click customize here to change your language. I'm just going to change this to English Canada. And you can also change your location as well. And once again, I'm also going to change mine to Canada. And click on apply and OK. You also have the option to change your keyboard layout if you would like. But I'm just going to leave that at default. Go ahead and click on next. Now it's asking us to put in a name and organization. This will basically create kind of like an administrator account. Under name, I'm just going to put the how-to guy 123, and organization I'll put YouTube. And once you have filled those out, go ahead and click on next. Now it's going to ask us for our license key. There's a license key that you can use on archive.org, but if that doesn't work, I may also put a license key in the description below. So once you've entered your license key, it's going to ask us to give our computer a name. I'll just leave that default. And you can also choose to add an administrator password, but I'm just going to leave this blank so I have no administrator password. And click on next. Now it's asking us to adjust our date and time zone, then click next. And the final pop-up, Windows XP is just asking us to configure a few network settings. Under network settings, just choose typical settings, then click next. It's asking us to add a workgroup. Just choose no, this computer is not on a network or is a network without a domain. Make this computer part of the following workgroup and just leave this as workgroup. Then click next. And now Windows XP is going to continue with the setup. This process might take a few minutes. So during the setup, our virtual machine is going to reboot again. Once again, it's asking us to press any key to boot from a CD. Make sure to not press any key and let that pass. And once Windows XP boots up again, we'll get this pop-up about our display settings. So to improve the appearance of visual elements, Windows will automatically adjust your screen resolution. Just click on OK, and your screen resolution will increase. Then click on OK again. And then Windows XP is going to bring you back to the setup, and we'll get some nice background music. So welcome to Microsoft Windows. Just click on Next. When it asks you to help protect your PC, choose Help Protect My PC by turning on Automatic Updates Now, and click Next. Now the setup is going to attempt to connect your virtual machine to the internet. And if it was successful, it's going to ask you if this computer will connect to the internet directly or through a network. Choose yes, this computer will connect through a local area network or home network. Then click on Next. Now it's going to ask you, are you ready to register with Microsoft? We are not. Then click Next. Now it's going to ask you to create some user accounts. I'll just create one and I'll call it the how-to guy 123. Then click Next. And now we're done with the setup. We just click on finish. And we'll hear the classic Windows XP login screen, and we'll be brought to our desktop. So we've pretty much successfully installed Windows XP on a VirtualBox virtual machine. But there's still a few things we need to do to get our virtual machine up and running smoothly. So first we need to install VirtualBox guest editions. This will allow us to increase our screen resolution and also full screen our virtual machine. So to do so, come up here to the top left hand corner in VirtualBox, click on Devices, then Insert Guest Editions CD Image. By default, Windows XP may detect that there's a CD that was inserted to your virtual machine, but if it doesn't, click on the Start button and go to My Computer. Then you'll see a VirtualBox Guest Edition CD. Just go ahead and double click on it, and that will open the VirtualBox Guest Editions setup. Now click on Next, Next, and then Install. And that will go ahead and install VirtualBox Guest Editions. Now during this process, you'll get a few warnings here. This just says that the software we are installing has not passed the Windows logo testing to verify its compatibility with Windows XP. Just click on Continue anyways, and that will continue with the Guest Editions install. And we'll get this warning a few times, so just click Continue anyways every time. And now it's going to ask you to reboot your virtual machine. So choose Reboot Now, then click Finish. And our virtual machine will be restarted. And you can hear the classic Windows XP logoff sound. So now that we're back in Windows XP, we can try and full screen our virtual machine. So in VirtualBox, come up here to the top left hand corner, click View, and then full screen mode, then click Switch. And we're now able to full screen our virtual machine, and it will match the resolution of our monitor. We can now come back to the Start button, My Computer, and we can eject the VirtualBox Guest Edition CD. So just right click on it, and then choose Eject. Before I end the video, I just want to talk about browsing the internet on Windows XP. We come to the Start button here and then open Internet Explorer. You can see that it's not even capable of loading the web page. If I go to a website like Reddit, you can see that it gives us an error that it doesn't even load the page. It just shows that the page cannot be displayed. And this is because the version of Internet Explorer that ships with Windows XP is so old and it just cannot load any modern web pages. So we'll need to install a more modern web browser. The one I recommend is Firefox, so I'm going to leave this link in the description below to download the last version of Firefox that is supported on Windows XP. I believe it's from 2018. So we're going to need to copy this download link into our virtual machine, and the easiest way to do this is to come up here to Devices in VirtualBox, come down here to Shared Clipboard, and set this to Host to Guest. This will allow us to copy any text from our host machine to our Windows XP virtual machine. So copy this link from the description below and paste it into Internet Explorer and then hit enter. You'll get this security alert, just click on yes. And now Internet Explorer is going to ask us if we want to save or run the Firefox installer. Go ahead and click on run, and that's going to download the Firefox installer. You'll then get this security warning, click on run, and now the Firefox installer is going to extract. Once the installer is open, click on Next, Standard Install, then click Next, then Install. Firefox is now finished installing. Let's go ahead and launch Firefox and click Finish. In the meantime, we can close out of Internet Explorer. I can see Firefox is opened. If we now try going to Reddit, you can see it actually loads. It's still not the best experience and websites are still pretty slow, but it at least loads the page, and pictures and videos should load fine. You should also be able to go to YouTube and watch YouTube videos. So a quick disclaimer before I end this video, use Windows XP at your own risk. Windows XP has not received any security updates in a number of years, so you'll be quite vulnerable when using the operating system. Do not sign into any important accounts like your email or Google account, because there is absolutely no security here. And just overall, be very careful when using this operating system. Anyways, that brings us to the end of the tutorial. If this video helped, please leave a like. If it didn't, leave a dislike. If you have any questions or comments, leave them down in the comment section below, and I'll try my best to help you guys out. So thank you guys for watching, and I'll see you guys in my next video.